Hello everybody, it's Kier from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here to talk about my favorite picture books that I read in 2023. This is part of my favorite books wrap up for 2023, and I'm breaking it up by different categories or genres. As I always talk about, each categories are not genres, but I thought it made sense to group all the picture books together. And I read a lot of really wonderful picture books, but because they are so short, I'm going to try and keep the descriptions pretty short. I'm also going to link to the wrap-ups where I talk about these, because I think in all of those I show an example of the art style so that I don't have to do that twice. And rather than just reiterating, oh, the art is so beautiful, I love this art is gorgeous, I'm going to try and give, if I have specific descriptors for the art, I'm going to try to give those. Anyway, let's just jump into it. These are going to just be in order that I read them throughout the year, so these aren't ranked. Tomatoes for Neela by Padman Lakshmi. This was illustrated by Juana Martinez Neal, who also illustrated Fry Bread. The art for this one is very warm and kind of feathery looking almost. The pencil sketches are very much part of the aesthetic, which I thought was really cool. And this picture book has a lot to say about culture and love and warmth and food and how all of those things overlapped and bring people together. Eyes That Kiss in the Corners and Eyes That Speak to the Stars by Joanna Ha and illustrated by Dong Ha. This is about self-acceptance, and again, this one also deals with family and culture, and it's about loving and celebrating the things that make you different from others and that also connect you to your family and to other parts of your life. The Secret Garden, which this is a picture book adaptation of the original novel by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This one is by Callista Brill, illustrated by Adelina Leary, I think. I'm having trouble reading my own writing, but it'll be in captions. And shout out to my friend Julia, who gifted this to me. The Secret Garden is a formative favorite book for me. There are definitely some aspects that do not age as well, but yeah, it's just a story that means a lot to me, and I thought this was a really fantastic adaptation of it. I'm really impressed at the way that it conveyed Mary's character arc so well in so few pages, and the art as suits a story about a garden. It is very vibrant and colorful and alive. Standing in the Need of Prayer by Carol Boston Weatherford, illustrated by Frank Morrison. This one, it's so beautiful in terms of the story and also the illustrations, of course, and how those things connect. And I feel so this is an adaptation of a spiritual, and I feel that really comes through in the art style. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. But yeah, this is a very, very moving book. I think this one won several awards, and I definitely see why. The Proudest Blue by Ibtihaj Muhammad and S.K. Ali, and illustrated by Hatem Ali. So this is the one that is in collaboration with, or one of the contributors. The story is about this young woman, Ibtihaj Muhammad, who is hijabi, and she was, I think, one of the first American athletes to participate in the Olympics, who was hijabi, and broke a lot of barriers, of course. And so this is based on her life. It's told from the point of view of her younger sister. That Flag by Tamika Fryer Brown and Nicholas Smith, or Nicholas Smith is the illustrator, who also illustrated the 1619 Project. His art is so beautiful and layered. Yeah, just I don't know how to describe it, but it's really, really incredible. Probably one of my favorite art styles that I'm talking about today. Again, it's hard to rank these, and I didn't rank these, but if I had to, I think That Flag would definitely be up there, because this is such an important book. It's about this young black girl who is best friends with a young white girl, and they've been friends for a really long time. They're very close. They're next door neighbors, but our main character's parents never let her go over to her friend's house, and this little girl doesn't understand why. And her parents say that it's because of a flag they have in their yard, which is, of course, the Confederate flag. And then their class goes on a field trip to a museum that talks about slavery and the Civil War and what the Confederate flag represents. So this is a story about having these hard conversations with kids, and it's about how the flag does not mean Southern pride. It is a very specific thing, and showing it or adoring it is a very specific choice, and it is a choice about who you are saying that you support and who you are saying deserves rights and who doesn't. And it's about how complicated that is when you're dealing with young kids who don't necessarily know all these things yet. Yeah, this is just such a good picture book. I feel like this is one of the many ones I have read that really highlight that picture books are literature, they are art, they are important works, and they can handle some incredibly difficult topics in a really good way. I also have to mention the books that my friend Mariana got me. The one I wrote specifically is Mi Cuerpo y Yo by Jorge Lujan, illustrated by Isol. I don't remember if I categorize the other one she gave me as a picture book. Maybe I didn't, because it was like also kind of a folklore type of book. This is one that like is very short, very few words on a page, but I was surprised and impressed by how much it said. Remember by Joy Harjo, illustrated by Michaela Goad. I have said before, Michaela Goad is officially, I think, one of my favorite illustrators. Probably top 3, honestly. I think she's incredibly talented. She's another illustrator who uses like very vibrant colors, but in ways that also play with like lighter tones too. Like her art is just gorgeous and so like peaceful to look at. Joy Harjo is a poet who I have really enjoyed, and I feel like this picture book really perfectly combines their two strengths. Like the poetry of Joy Harjo and the illustration style of Michaela Goad, I think, are a match made in heaven. And then I have 3 picture books that are all written by Hannah Khan and illustrated by Meridox Amini. And those are One Sun and Countless Stars, Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns, and Crescent Moons and Pointed Minarets. So these are books that are about shapes, numbers, and colors, and they're all through like Muslim imagery and concepts. And I think it is so wonderful that these books exist. This art style is, again, beautiful. A lot of like jewel tones and very like strong colors and very defined shapes, which makes sense for the kinds of books that these are, kind of introducing young children to concepts. And I also really appreciate, and Hannah Khan I think talks about this in the author's note, I really appreciate that she made such a point of highlighting different like Muslims from different parts of the world and like culture and different like cultural practices and how those influence the way people practice Islam. So I just thought these were absolutely beautiful. The Grand Mosque of Paris by Karen Gray Ruel, illustrated by Deborah Dolan Desay. I think she's the illustrator, not the translator, but I'm not sure. So this is a picture book that is about a true story. It is talking about the way that there was a pretty significant movement in Nazi-occupied France where a Muslim community, specifically around the Grand Mosque of Paris, helped Jewish children and Jewish families escape. And this is like a real thing that happened, and it was something that I did not know about before reading this. So in terms of like what this book taught me, I think it is really well done. And the book also talks about the challenges of uncovering and talking about history that by definition is very hard to find documentation of. So I thought that was very valuable as well. Just, yeah, really important story, and I'm glad that I know about it now. Dear Mama God by Deneen Akers, illustrated by Gillian Gamble. This is a book that is essentially an adaptation of a prayer that the author and her daughter kind of sort of like developed or like interpreted from other things, and it's about using feminine language for the divine, and specifically coming from a Christian perspective that in many ways often uses very like masculine, very patriarchal language, even when that is not in the original text. Like that was something that the translators changed or added. And so this picture book is interesting because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people are very upset. They think that this picture book is changing things that shouldn't be changed, but actually it is a more honest translation of the original. And this is also just a really lovely kind of soft color illustration style, and just a really wonderful concept to be introducing to young kids. A Girl Named Rosita by Anika Aldamuy Denise and illustrated by Leo Espinosa. This is a biographical picture book about Rita Moreno. Not a lot of specifics to say about this one because I just feel like it did everything you would expect from a biographical picture book, and it did all those things very well. Yeah, I really enjoyed learning about her. I thought this did a really great job of conveying the information while still making it an engaging picture book and story. And of course, I love the art. In the Blue by Erin Horrigan. This is one of the ones that I read for a collab that I was in. I feel like I'm overusing the word important in this video, so I apologize for that. But this one is also very important because it's a book about mental health. Specifically, it deals with a main character whose father struggles with depression, and how she is trying to understand that and come to terms with that, and how basically like how you can communicate this to young kids who are maybe having trouble understanding why their loved one is acting different, or how this isn't their fault. This is nobody's fault, and it just happens. And there are things that you can do to support them, but it doesn't mean, again, it's not like their fault. It's not that their parent doesn't love them as much anymore. I think this picture book just does a really fantastic job of highlighting how things like this can affect families as well, but also how families can kind of come together to support their family members who are dealing with things like this. And the color palette of this one was very like high contrast, but also like soft. It was very interesting. There was a lot of yellow and a lot of blue, and it kind of uses like the imagery of like a trip that they took to the beach and like the ocean, and how, you know, there will be like ebbs and flows in this sickness, and that's normal. I think this book just did a really good job with a very, again, difficult topic. Then I have When We Were Alone by David Alexander Robinson, illustrated by Julie Flett, who she has a really like, it reminds me of like paper cutout style. I think it's really cool. And this one my friend Kier from Kier the Scrivener recommended to me, and I'm so glad she did, because I obviously love this. It's on my favorites list. And this is by a Native author and illustrator, and it is about the residential school system, like the aftermath of that. I think specifically in Canada, but a lot of it, of course, applies to the US as well. And it's about this little girl who asks her grandmother one day, like, why do you do these things? Like, why do you wear your hair so long? Why do you wear clothing like this? And her grandmother answers her with like, what it was like growing up in a residential school where they were forcibly prevented from practicing their culture. So it's about the importance of cultural practices, the importance of memory, and it's also about generational trauma and trying to do what you can to kind of heal from that, and the ways that you can, fight against having these things taken from you, and like basically reclaiming like culture and history. So this is wonderful. Kape Mahu by Hinali Moana Wong-Kalu, Dean Hamer, Joe Wilson, and illustrated by Daniel Souza. This is one that I think got quite a bit of buzz, and for good reason. This is by a group of Native Hawaiian creators. I know that the author and illustrator are, and it is an adaptation of a very important foundational story for the Native Hawaiian people. The Kanaka Maoli, I believe, is how they prefer to be called. And yeah, this is an adaptation of that story that I really wasn't familiar with. So it's about like how kind of like how their people came to be on these islands, how they learned to do and make different things. And it also highlights something that I think a lot of people have heard before, but this is a great example of like seeing that sort of in action, which is that for a lot of Native groups, gender was never as restrictive or binary as it is in a lot of like Western cultures. And I feel like Kape Mahu shows that really well, because these 5 beings who come to the island, I don't remember if some of them or all of them, but at least some of them are what we would call as gender nonconforming or non-binary, and I thought that was very cool the way that was highlighted in the story. Okay, just the last few here. Nina by Tracy N. Todd, illustrated by Christian Robinson, and this is another picture book biography, and pretty much what I said about the Rita Moreno one, this book also did well. Again, great art. I think this did a really wonderful job of talking about Nina Simone's life, and not just her singing, but also like how important her activism was, and what a big part of her life that was, and that also like contributed to her singing career as well. Like, I mean, those things were very connected. And again, it was very informative, but also well written as a story. Nell Plants a Tree by Anne Winter, illustrated by Daniel Mioru. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading my own writing here. This one is so wonderful and warm, and like the art style is very like cozy and soft. And I feel like that really fits what the book is about too, because it is about, it's about a lot of different things, like the importance of different kinds of family and different kinds of love, but also the importance of reading. And I think what this book is about primarily is about doing things, spreading kindness for the future, like for other people, and how some even things that bring you joy in the moment, they can also have a big impact later on as well. And finally, the last one I'm going to talk about is Charlotte and the Nutcracker by Charlotte Nebrace, illustrated by Aaliyah Marley. And this is a true story that is based on Charlotte Nebrace, who was the first Black ballerina to play Clara in the Nutcracker, I think for the New York City Ballet specifically, which if you're not aware, that is a really huge, like really big name ballet company in the US, but also internationally. So it was especially significant that it was them casting a young Black girl. And so it's about that. So it's about her journey, her getting that role and performing it, and of course it also includes some elements of the Nutcracker, the story of the ballet. And I thought this was really, really beautiful. I don't understand why this one has a fairly low rating, considering it's a picture book, which tend to, I feel like, skew higher, because I think they are just like less of a focus for a lot of people. So if you're reading picture books, generally you're picking up ones that you like, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't understand why this one has a low rating. So I would really recommend this one. I thought it was beautiful, perfect for like the Christmas season, which is when I read it, but also just a really great story about an important ballet milestone. Okay, I think those are all the picture books I wanted to talk about. As I said, there were a lot because I read like so many good picture books in 2023. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, there's some incredible storytellers out there who are writing and illustrating picture books, and I think they deserve more attention. Yeah, let me know if you have read any of these, what you thought of them, or if you want to pick any of them up, look into them. There's so many good ones coming out, or that have been out, and I think at some point I need to do some kind of video that is like, if you're an adult and you haven't picked up picture books in a really long time, like just a few to start with, or a few that kind of exemplify why they are an important part of reading. Anyway, so maybe I'll think about doing that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!